Alright guys, so you guys have been asking for it, and I guess tonight's going to be the night. I had a little downtime. I probably should be cleaning the shop because I really haven't had time, but we're going to go over my Lexus. So, here we go. So, obviously, we're going to go over the car. Let's start off with what year it is. It's a 92 Lexus SC300. So it's a 1.5J with a 6262 precision. It makes roughly 610 horsepower turned all the way up. I don't usually leave it there because I don't want to push it over the edge. So let's turn you guys around and take a look at the car. Alright guys, so you can see the car's been pretty beat up here. I lost the bumper at Grid Life South at Road Atlanta, and when it slid off, it actually wasn't hurt, but it looks like somebody punted it a little bit. But this is a real Vertex Ridge wide body kit from Vertex. My dad's fixed it 2 or 3 times. He's got a lot more time to play with it than I do. Real Vertex fenders. These side skirts are actually knockoffs. So I had to do that. I lost a large hunk. So these are the genuine Vertex side skirts here. I've got one in good shape here, but as you guys can see, I'm missing the front bit of that. So I went off at Road Atlanta in 2017 and just destroyed the front bumper. I did a board slide across the rumble strips and the S's and ruined one of my side skirts. I couldn't find all the parts. And 2018 season was coming up fast, so I just went ahead and bought some knockoffs. I hate how they fit, but they got me through the season. We'll probably look into getting some different side skirts for this year, for 2019. You can see these don't fit great. We literally just painted them and threw them on. So, Vertex 50 mil overs in the back. Vertex back bumper. This thing's been broken a few times. We pieced it back together. So you can see the oval exhaust here. So it's got a 4-inch exhaust from the mid-pipe back. Okay, so it's got a 4-inch exhaust from the mid-pipe back. The mid-pipe is oval 3.5 from the turbo to the into the mid-pipe. And then it opens up to 4 down the tunnel. And then as soon as it hits the rear subframe, it squishes down into oval. So you can see that. So we have these VSKFs on it. The rears are 18 by 11.5 and the fronts are 18 by 9.5. So I run LS400 front brakes on this thing and the wheels didn't clear the calipers, so we had to add a big spacer. One of the things that I'll be hopefully trying to get to on this off season is putting NA brakes back on it, losing the spacer, and gaining some track width. I don't know if you guys are familiar with WiseFab. I'm really hoping to get a WiseFab kit on this car because I'm kind of out of luck with cut knuckles and stuff. The car does currently have battle version modified knuckles, battle version inner tie rods, and inner tie rod spacers. So the car has quite a bit of lock. I'll show you that here in a few minutes, but with how aggressive I've been driving the car, I'm kind of running out of lock when it snaps because the car is a big car. With me in it, the car weighs approximately 3,350. That's pretty heavy. She's a big girl, but yeah, so she slides great. She's super fast. Very predictable. The car is on BC custom coilovers this year. They are 20K front spring rate and 8K in the rear. So this car squats really, really hard. I'll almost drag the side skirts. So let's move on to the inside. Okay, so I got this Momo steering wheel. I really love it. Kind of your classic drifty, you know where the steering wheel is. You don't pay attention to it when it's flying back and forth. You can see the nameless performance handbrake here. That thing has been a really good upgrade from what I was using. I did have one of the CNC brand and I used it as a pass-through. I had a couple issues with it and it pumped up on me. So the old handbrake I had actually pumped up on me a few times and like tried to lock the back brakes. So I did change that. It had a master cylinder failure. It wasn't returning all the way. So it ended up just pumping the brakes up and dragging the back brakes to where I'd have to pump and pump and pump. So I did run the Nameless as a pass-through for a while and decided that it was time to go ahead and bite the bullet, find another set of Supra twin turbo calipers, and do dual caliper. So it has committed, it has a committed caliper for the handbrake, and that's got it's a Supra TT caliper, so dual piston caliper with Project Mu high carbon brakes. I think it's high carbon brakes. Those things were a huge upgrade over the just standard ceramic pads that I had in it. I was actually getting brake fade with how big the wheels and tires are. It was just putting a lot of stress on them, overheating the pads, and they were fading real bad. So one other thing that I did with this car is I actually converted it to drive-by-wire. All right, so you can see the pedal here. The pedal here is from a Cadillac CTS, and it's just a Chevrolet Performance, but it is a drive-by-wire pedal. I really enjoy the way it feels and the fact that I can tune it. So why drive-by-wire? At first it was kind of, hey, the Elite 2500 can do drive-by-wire. I'm gonna just try it, see what I can do. The really great thing about drive-by-wire is you don't have to worry about an idle motor. So the 2J GTE, the NA2J, the 1J, they all have this idle motor that if you guys have a JZ, you've probably had issues with your idle motor. You've either had to clean it or replace it. The drive-by-wire gets rid of it totally, and this car will fire up when it's cold on E85 and idle perfectly. So cold starts, it idles up until it gets warm, idles down. It's got closed loop throttle controls, but it automatically learns what the car wants to do. So if you let off and it tries to drop, it'll automatically crack the throttle and bring it back up. So that's one thing that's been really great. All of the idle up features that I use, so I use a idle up feature called rotational idle. So what it does is it brings the idle up and starts cutting one cylinder per rotation, so you get a really badass sound. But I use it mainly to just idle the car up so it doesn't drop all the way to idle if I come in real hot with the e-brake, so that it doesn't have to rev another 1200 RPMs to get to like 2200 where it usually sits. It just automatically is hanging at 2200. So drive-by-wire, it's really been great. I know a lot of people are skeptical and worried about doing it, but if you look at a lot of the big cars, Ryan Turk, his 2J, also drive-by-wire. You'll see a lot of drive-by-wire if you look, so you guys might actually start seeing a little bit more now that you're looking for it. All right, so let's move on to the trunk where the fuel system is. All right, so here's the fuel system and the battery, obviously. Let's see if this trunk lid will stay up. It doesn't want to. That's not gonna work. Let me get a hood prop. All right, much better. Boom. Okay, so onto the fuel system. So we have the stock tank. It has a Walbro 255 in it. That actually feeds a radium surge tank with two staged Walbro 485s. It will run on the main pump out of here. So it'll just run on one pump until it sees boost, and then it clicks the other pump on. This thing has been amazing. Everything I've used has fit just how it was intended. No issues with, fuel safe or really any leaks or anything like that. I did hand bend all these lines. Not really necessary. You never see them. I barely ever have the trunk open, but they're cool. I guess wow factor if you're into that. They took a lot of time. It is kind of artsy. I did enjoy doing it, but honestly, if I did it again, I'd just do soft lines with fittings and just make my lines, even though this does look pretty badass. So that's the fuel system. It all feeds through these two guys here up to the front and then returns here back into the surge tank. So when the surge tank overflows, it dumps back into the stock tank. So the good thing about a surge tank is it stays full all the time, and with drifting and everything, you are side to side a lot, so you don't want to starve the thing for fuel. So let's go ahead and move up to the front, get under the hood, and I'll show you guys and talk about that a little bit. So we've obviously got this like D-Max style hood vent. That is to not only evacuate heat from the engine, but also it's a V-mount. So when you have this V-mount set up, it allows you to get direct air from the front bumper through the intercooler and through the radiator. By doing that, you don't have to worry about overheating the car. So I run a giant All-Star Performance dual pass radiator. That has been key to keeping this car cool. All right, so as you can see, BC custom coilovers. Like I said before, 20K in the front. So I run such a heavy spring in the front to kind of act as like an extra large sway bar. It counteracts the fact that this car wants to lean so bad, and it was leaning really bad on the old stance suspension. And since I've upgraded to the BCs, this car has been an absolute rocket ship. Way better as far as like driver input. It does what you want it to do. That helps a lot with being comfortable with a car that is this fast. So the engine. The engine is a 1.5 JZ with a Precision 6262. It has the OCD Works T51R mod, so this thing really screams. You can see the drive-by-wire throttle here. This drive-by-wire throttle body is actually off of a Toyota Tundra. So the 5.7 liter Toyota Tundra, so the second generation Tundra, that's the throttle body off of it. It's a 70 something millimeter, which is pretty perfect for this size engine. So you can see that I'm running radium fuel rail here. These are ID 1700Xs. These have been absolutely mint. You can see how awesome this radium stuff fits. Also, you can see that I'm running the big Mercury Marine style coils from Haltech. Obviously, I'm going to be running a lot of Haltech products, but believe it or not, I bought 90% of my products before I worked there. You guys remember seeing the RX-7? That had a Haltech on it. I believe in their stuff. That's why I work there. So, take that as you may. So you can see the exhaust manifold. I did paint it white for some like nostalgic purposes. I've had to fix that manifold like 5 times now. I do have everything for building a scratch built manifold that's going to be a lot nicer out of some like Schedule 10 stainless Weldels. So I've just been lazy fixing this one and not taking the time to build a new one. We'll see if I can get to that this off season. There's a lot going to be happening. So let's move on. You can see this is a Tile MVR wastegate, and I am actually utilizing the water cooling. With as much heat as these cars put off with the exhaust energy and everything like that, having a water-cooled wastegate is really nice because you don't have to worry about burning up diaphragms all the time, because pretty much the entire time I drive this car, the exhaust is glowing. Nice to not have to worry about burning up diaphragms in your wastegate and having boost run away or not making any boost at all. The engine is a 1.5 JZ. It has a NA2J block and a 1J head that is non-VVTi. Okay, so the 2J block, I put, basically we had to scramble to put this thing together. I put turbo pistons in it, brand new OEM rings gapped to what a lot of the big racers gap their rings to. I don't remember what that was. It's been a little bit. It does have ARP rod bolts. It does have, I also put ACL race bearings, the whole kit, so rod bearings, main bearings, and thrust washers in it. I ported the oil pump to have better flow and allow it to actually do better. All right, so I do run 2050 oil, and having ported the oil pump, it's got a lot of oil pressure all the time. So I don't ever worry about oil pressure. So the cylinder head, pretty much stock, no porting. It has stock size valves in it, which I know a lot of people will actually do oversized valves in the 1J head to make them flow a little bit better. They are a little bit smaller valve, I believe. Then the cams are BC 264s, so they're mild stage 2 cam. It also has BC springs and retainers in it. So it uses a 2JZ GTE head gasket, just OEM Toyota, nothing special, ARP head studs. Clamp it down, put it together, make 600 wheel horsepower. Honestly, you probably don't even need to do all that to make 600 wheel horsepower on this thing, but it only runs 22 pounds of boost. So Seems like a very efficient setup. Let's move to the intake manifold. I did build this intake manifold, so obviously with like converting to drive-by-wire, I couldn't just use the factory manifold. I probably could have, but I can't personally. I can't leave anything alone apparently. Built this intake manifold. Basically what I did was, so you can see that it actually has like stock runners. However, I cut the plenum off. So I added a big plate to the top of the runners when I cut them off, and I belled all of the intake runners a lot larger than they normally would have been to increase flow and velocity and everything like that. So very simple intake manifold. I mean, it did take some time to do, but it's really not a super overcomplicated deal. It just has a few vacuum ports for my map sensor, my brake booster, blow-off valve, and stuff like that. So this thing looks like it's super overcomplicated, but it's actually pretty simple. So you can see over here, that I run a firewall-mounted map sensor. It's a Haltech 4-bar motorsports map sensor, so it's our better map sensor, not just your standard like GM 4-bar or whatever. I used to have one of those. I had some issues with it, so I bend it and put one of these on it. Definitely a good upgrade. You can see over here, I do have a flex fuel sensor in the return line. So that allows me to keep an eye on my ethanol content, because I just run pump E85, nothing special, no race gas. I know a lot of people have good luck with like the Ignite E90, Ignite Red fuels. I know a few people run it. I don't need it, so I don't run it. It's more expensive. Pump E85 is like $2 a gallon. I take 18 gallons in the stock tank and then another 35 gallons with me, and I have yet to run out. Usually I have 10 or 15 gallons of excess, and I just dump it in the Tundra. So that's that. You can see that this intercooler is actually like an eBay, like CX Racing style core. That is something that's going to change this off season. We are going to go to a custom intercooler that I'm going to work on. It will have a vibrant core, and it's going to be much better. I'll be able to clean everything up a little bit more. You can see that like everything has to make big hard turns to get in here. The new one is going to be set up to where it's a straighter shot. Same with over here. So what I'm thinking about doing is changing how this all works so that it's a little bit smoother, and that hopefully it will use the entire core. You'll notice that like when these are straight across from each other, obviously the air just wants to go from point A to point B. It doesn't always necessarily use the whole core. So we're going to change that and fix the way this all works. What I did want to show you guys is the T51R mod, like what the difference is. So this is the T51R mod. You can see this looks like an old HKS T51R. You can see my little billet wheel 6262. This is a journal bearing. Nothing special, nothing fancy. You can kind of see the water lines from the wastegate here as well. That's my little turbo. This thing absolutely screams. Lots and lots of turbo boosty noises. The one other thing I didn't really talk about was this strut bar. I did have to make that to clear the coils. So whenever you do the 1.5J, the deck height on a 2J block is taller than a 1J. So I had the coils and everything on the 1J. However, whenever I put the 2J block in it to increase the displacement to 3 liters versus 2.5, nothing fit. So I initially had a Mark IV Supra TRD strut bar, which fit great. It stiffened the chassis up like crazy. However, it didn't fit anymore. So I had to make a new one because in 2017, I did go and drop a tire at Gingerman, and it actually bent the shock tower. I tacoed a wheel. There was a big hole right off the side of the track. I hit that, and it actually bent the shock tower. The car leaned to the left a little bit because the shock tower was out of place. Got that thing fixed early this year, so 2018. And I wasn't doing that again, so built that strut bar, and it actually stiffened the car up a bunch. I wanted it to look like the TRD strut bar with little dimple dies and everything. So yeah, that's that. We're gonna put the car on the lift now and show you guys everything. This thing does have a kill switch on it. It's under here. One thing that I like to do as far as with a car like this, if it sits for a little bit, I'll usually go ahead and just turn it over with the key or the ignition off. So you can build a little bit of oil pressure, make sure that it gets the oil where it needs to be before you go firing it up so it's not a dry fire. One thing that I did upgrade on the inside this year from previous years is I put an NRG SFI quick release on it. This thing is, I think it makes life so easy. Like, look at that. No thoughts. So let's get in here real quick. So, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead. You can see the shifter that I made. It's kind of obscene, but so the Z33 has a big tripod deal that hangs way off the back of the transmission, and so what I did was I cut that down as far as I could, and then the shifter obviously would have stuck out in the wrong place. So I just went ahead and cut and moved the shifter forward. It does shift a little bit funny. As you'll see, the sweep is kind of not just side to side. It kind of does like a weird sweep. But I got used to it. It shifts fine. I shift this thing way harder than I've probably shifted any of my cars before. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. So, I do have an IQ3S in this thing. E85 life. Just 2 tries. It's been like 40 degrees inside the shop. We leave the heat down so we don't burn up a bunch of money in heat, but it has been like in the 20s. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing put on the lift and we'll get underneath it. Let's go ahead and get this thing up in the air and you guys can see underneath it. So I guess we'll go ahead and start with the back of the car. So we have a 4-inch oval exhaust here that I built. That's just all obviously round, solid diff bushing. So those were actually done by a friend of the original owner, I believe. So in my opening video, kind of introducing myself, I did talk about how this chassis did come from Ohio. Some of the stuff I have left alone because it just worked. No reason to change something and spend extra money and effort if it, you know, works perfectly. A lot of this stuff worked great. Battle version, solid subframe bushings, battle version tow arms, factory lowers. You can see the BCs here. You can see those guys. So the BCs are actually their DR series, which is their digressive stuff. And the way these things handle and work are just amazing. I had VCs on a street car, another SC, and that's really what pushed me to get in contact with these guys and see if they could build me a better coilover than what was on it. And I can say that I will definitely not be using anything else. These guys have been great to deal with. They perform flawlessly, which is really what matters more than anything, but really the fact that I was able to talk with them about spring rates and, you know, dampening options and everything like that. They basically confirmed what I was thinking. I had originally talked to one of Rob Parsons' buddies, Spencer, and he's the one who recommended doing the 20K, and I think he originally talked to me about doing a 10K rear, but then I actually also talked to Cameron Moore, who did FD Pro in an SC. So he tried to talk me into going to a 7K. So I kind of split the two. They both definitely know what they were talking about, and after talking to Taylor Ray and Marco and a few of the guys at BC, they just basically said, hey, why don't you go with an 8K, because with the dampening you can actually basically make the car feel like it has 1K less spring rate just with dampening, or the opposite and go basically 1K up if you're looking to lose a little grip. So I went ahead with an 8K in the rear. The differential is a stock NA 5-speed diff. So this chassis actually is an original 5-speed chassis, which is kind of rare. That means something to some people, but for a race car, it doesn't really matter. But it's kind of cool. It is a 92 original 5-speed car. So this is a 5-speed diff. It is it's a 408 diff ratio. It has a COS 2A in it. This happened at Riverside. I had a tire come apart on me and one of the cords went around the boot. I kind of forgot, and then I drove on it a lot afterwards. So it's a mess. We'll clean this up. I've got other axles. So these are Buck Performance arms. So if you follow me on Instagram, I do talk about Buck Performance a lot. His upper control arms, I have them in the rear and in the front. You can see the dual caliper back here now. So this right here is my foot brake, and then that is my committed hydro brake. So I got the brackets from another SC driver, Dan Parlenfine. He drives MDU and he drives Riverside. So his car is a turbo LS and an SC. We love our big body Lexuses, but he made the dual caliper brackets and hooked me up with them. They worked out great. I was super excited to not have to make any. So he's kind of local. He's up in Ohio as well. So I went ahead, bought those, and I will definitely always run a committed handbrake. Let's move forward. So you can see here, those are battle version solid diff bushings here. I think they were. Like I said, they were on the car when I got it. So you can see these are definitely battle version right here. They're solid subframe bushings. Moving forward, so I have a drive shaft. Great guys to deal with. I gave them the measurements. First shot worked perfect. You can see I've got their adapter as well. So it's got the larger 1350, I think is what they call these U-joints. So it's got their billet aluminum adapter to go from the standard 3-bolt to the 4-bolt like this. Let's move forward here. You can see the fuel lines. This is the clutch line. It is an internal slave, so it has a Z-Speed upgraded internal concentric slave. That thing's been great. I hear the stock units are kind of junk. This is a Jeep motor mount. It worked out great. You just had to open the holes up a little bit, and then you've got a really nice solid trans mount. As you can see, I don't know if this is smart or dumb or what, but it has worked great for the past 4 years of driving this car hard. It is the factory trans cross member that I just milled all the center out and put a nice big washer on it. So that's worked out great. I talked to you guys about the modified shifter. You can see that it is really tight in here. So, I mean, you can see how tight it is up in here, but you can see where I shortened that guy. It worked great. It's fine. It works. It's kind of weird. If you've driven a normal Z, they drive normal. This thing shifts kind of funky, but you get used to it. But you can really see how tight it is up in here. So you can see how big this stock bell housing is. It's massive. I had to beat the hell out of the tunnel to get this thing up in here the first time. So you can see where it opens up to 4" from 3.5. This is all vibrant oval. It's been fine. It's worked great. You can see 3.5" downpipe. I did recently put this in here because I was melting people's shoes. So you can see that it has some DEI heat shielding material right here. That kept people from melting their shoes at Road Atlanta. So that was nice. All right, I'm running excessive manufacturing motor mounts. That one looks like it may have turned a little bit. That doesn't look normal. But yeah, so excessive manufacturing motor mounts, they have been an absolute amazing upgrade over the stock stuff. So let's see here. Okay, so LS400 brakes. You can see these here, they're massive. Then battle version, modified knuckles. More BC goodness. You can see how big those coils are. These things have been so great. Buck Performance upper control arms. That was a new addition for this year, and it's allowed me to get the extra negative camber that I've needed to allow this thing to drive better. Little oil cool over here. That is going to be something that I change. We're going to change it up a little bit. I did puncture the original oil cooler that was on it at Road Atlanta this past year. Basically, I had to loop it. So I looped it for the remainder of the event, and it was fine. I just had to be really careful and keep an eye on my oil temps. But that little guy worked well for Riverside. So you can see the V-mount setup here. It is an All-Star Performance dual pass radiator. I did have to modify it a little bit to make it work, but that thing's worked good. I've been running Federals. They've been great. That is a possible change that's going to be made for 2019. Might be going to a different tire manufacturer. I think that's probably going to be a thing. So you can see, I mean, this car is pretty basic. It's leaky recently. I think that's the cam seals. The cam seals, this thing does make a ton of oil pressure when it's cold, and I had to end up putting aftermarket cam seals in it, and they leak. So I guess we'll, seal this thing up this off season and get it to quit being leaky, because leaky motors are gross. But this is one thing that is a big upgrade for your JZ engine. So this is the Titan version 2 ATI super damper. This thing's amazing. You can run a standard belt. It's been great. You can see this car, I did upgrade to a Hall effect sensor for the crank sensor. We were using that to do some testing at work. You can see the manifold. It's pretty beat up. It really needs to be upgraded. I'll build something new. Hopefully this year. Remote oil filter, leaky as well. I really hate oil leaks, so those are things that definitely need to be resealed. They are a total pain in the ass. I hate not knowing where oil's coming from or having to worry about it going through oil. Not fun. Dripping oil on the track's not okay either, so gonna fix that stuff this off season, get it to quit being a drippy little thing. I think that's pretty much it. This thing's kind of crazy, it looks crazy, it's super fast, but it's pretty basic as far as like a JZ car goes. Single turbo, turn up the boost, put it on ethanol, make a lot of horsepower. It's about time for me to go home, so I'm gonna get this thing put back down, make sure the power's turned off a bit. Guys, so I really hope you enjoyed going through the car with me. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. I probably missed some stuff. If you guys have anything else you want me to cover, like more in depth, let me know in the comments below. There will be a lot happening with this car, lots of upgrades, some maintenance stuff, some testing, all kinds of stuff's coming. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe so that you can, stay up to date. Turn on post notifications. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have anything you want to look at more in depthly or have me cover a little bit more, please feel free to put it in the comments below, and I'll be happy to do so. All right, so I guess we're gonna get out of here now. See you guys soon. Bye.